Why do we hate what we hate? It's a pertinent question that most of us never think about. We just hate things. And maybe deep inside of us we have a reason, but we've never actually sat down to ask ourselves, what is the reason? And does this reason make sense? Is it a safe reason? Is it a positive reason? Is it a negative reason? We just kind of have the reason at the back of our minds, but we never question why we actually hate what we hate. In this video, I'll be talking about belief, perception, and propaganda. Propaganda being the major conversation, but we can't talk about propaganda and why people like you and me fall for propaganda without talking about our beliefs and our perceptions. If this is your first time here, welcome. My name is Adia Young, and I talk about everything. Conversations with A, that's the point of this channel. So thank you for joining. I hope you enjoy this conversation. And of course, to make it a conversation, I appreciate comments, right? So, because we can't talk if one person is not actually talking, it can't be a conversation, right? So, don't forget to drop your comments, your opinions, your questions, snarky remarks, whatever it is, in the comment section so that it does feel like we're having a conversation and I can gauge where my message is going and how it is, being perceived by you. But for this video, let's go back to basics. Let us look at how we should see our connection to other people within our society, right? So basically, how we see ourselves and others within society. Now, most people will see themselves at the center of attention, right? The center, the anchor. So from them will come other people and other connections and other opportunities and everything. So from them, everything moves, outward, right? But to me, this is how I see it. There is a central idea, and then the second circle is where you fall. And the circle after that is where your family or your foundational relationships fall. And then the circle after that is where your community falls. And of course, with different people within those circles, you have there's different kinds of relationships. There's different levels of relationships. Not everyone, will get the same attention from you, right? But the central idea, it's not you. You're not the center. I'm not the center. The central idea is exactly that, the central idea. So that's where your beliefs, your perception, your culture, your ideas, your opinions, that's where they stand. That is the anchor. Not you yourself, not your physical self, but your idea, your perception, your mind, that is the central idea that all of us work with, right? So when we're talking about belief holds you together. Belief is most times illogical. And I'm not saying illogical doesn't mean stupid or wrong. Okay? Belief is sometimes illogical because we want to hold on to something that sometimes does not make any sense to other people, but might make sense to us. Belief is what motivates you or demotivates you. Belief is the central idea. And so when we're talking about propaganda, propaganda has to target your belief, your perception, your opinion. It doesn't target you as a physical individual. It targets the core, the essence, the central idea. Let's move on from that. So going back to why do we hate what we hate? There are two central ideas I like to work with. Reason one, it's not like us. Reason two, it's too much like the bad us. Because we've been sold this idea that we need to be good all the time. And so anything that reminds us of the bad us, it's rejected. And that's where the hate comes from. And the hate itself comes from a fear of sitting with, of encountering, of facing the thing that is not enough like us or too much like the bad us. Let me explain further. Okay. So let's see. What do I really hate? I can't say I really hate many things. What I hate the most is people that are incapable of thinking for themselves. But because I have faced that thought, why do I hate people that don't think for themselves? Because I am scared. I fear the day that I am incapable of thinking for myself, that I am incapable of thinking clearly, that I am incapable of not being biased or prejudiced. I hate that feeling within myself. And so, when I see someone who is incapable of thinking for themselves, the first thing is, I hate that. I hate you. But then I think, well, that's just me. I'm just projecting. I'm just projecting. I don't know what that person's going through. I don't know why they think that way. I don't know why they're believing that. And so then I sit down and I question. And I'm like, don't impose your hate on someone else because of your own fear of facing or ever facing the fact that you might become dumb one day. Do you get me? So that is the one thing that I hate. And that is because that is the one thing that is not like me. And I really fear becoming that thing. Do you see what I mean? So the two things here, as I said, when it is not like us and when it is too much like the bad us, right? So mine comes from the first one. So question yourself today, which one does yours come from? The first or the second? Because our hate comes from a fear. And fear most times is not just fear. It can be resentment. It can be shame. It can be guilt. We sometimes just use the word hate instead. But if you dig deeper and you ask, why do I hate this thing? You come down to, I fear this thing. I resent this thing. I am ashamed of this thing. I am guilty of this thing. I don't want to be this thing. That is, so again, you have to question your emotions. Remember from my last video where I was talking about questioning your emotions and sitting with it and understanding your own thoughts and ideas and your emotions and being able to work with them. Because if you can work with your emotions, then it'll be harder for you to say, I hate anything. The same way I tried to explain here something I hate, and I couldn't really find an example, and I had to use a very simple one because I rarely hate anything, right? So that is that for why we hate what we hate. Now, our perception from when we are born to when we get older and when we pass on, our perception is fed by what others tell us, by what others show us. And when we're able to formulate our own perception, we send out the same messages to others. So perception is quite cyclical. Perception is very cyclical. What I perceive, I send out. What you perceive, you send out. That is perception at its simplest, its most innate form, right? So if I am seeing that there are more Muslims in a place, right? My brain starts to try to add up things that I know about Muslims, right? So what has the media fed me about Muslims? What do I actually know about Muslims? What have I heard about Muslims? What are the stereotypes about Muslims? Yes? And then all of that is added together. And then I have a perception of Muslims, despite the fact that I may not have ever interacted with any Muslims in my life. Right? And then I look out for the things that I perceive as what Muslims are meant to be like. And when I see that thing, it's a confirmation bias. And I'm like, yes, that's how Muslims are. And it reinforces my perception. And I send that perception back out to others by sharing my opinions and my ideas about Muslims, whether negative or positive. Perception. Again, it comes from your thoughts, your feelings, and if you add your bias and prejudice on it, which all of us have, most times it becomes quite negative and it doesn't help with development. Now that you understand belief and perception and how that works to come together as the central idea of who you are, again, the central idea is the core, not you. How does propaganda, how does that come into play? Now, propaganda is quite simple. It's information that is shared with you that is one-sided and biased. Propaganda is information that is shared with you, whether it's broadcast, whether it is storytelling, whatever it is. It could be an opinion, it could be, one-sided fact, it could be media, whatever it is. But when it is shared with you, it only shares one side of a story, one side of a fact, and it is mostly biased. Because if you only share one side of a story, what happens to all the other sides? What happens to all the other points of facts? Here's one thing I want to share with you. You see, facts can be used, one fact can be used to explain very many different types of perception. Let me explain. If I say 50% of the migrants to the UK are Nigerian, that's the fact. 50% of the migrants to the UK are Nigerian. That is the fact. Nigerians can say, well, that's 50% of the migrants. That's fine. I mean, it doesn't harm anyone. Some UK citizens who are more inclined to be racist might say, that's 50% of the total population of Nigeria coming to the UK. That's 50% of our population taken over by, Nigerians. And other people might say, oh, is that 50% of 1 year? Is that 50% of this month? Is that 50% of... Someone else might say, oh, if Nigerians are 50%, then Indians are 90%. Now, that wasn't said in the fact, right? Someone else has created an opinion from their perception, because where they live, there are more Indians than Nigerians. So if someone says 50% of migrants are Nigerians, that means where they live and where they're seeing more Indians, then there are more Indians than Nigerians. So it must be higher than 50%. It must be 90%. 50% in what sense? For this year, for this month? 50% to universities, or 50% through work visas? So that headline was propaganda. It gave one side of a story, no context, and it wanted to elicit a biased opinion from you, a prejudiced opinion from you, especially if you've seen other headlines that say, oh, Nigerians are taking more of the jobs. Nigerians are coming here with too many of their families, too many dependents. We've allowed them to come with too many dependents. It's increased by 100%. What does that mean in figures, though? And once you hear it's increased by 100%, oh, they're taking over. They're taking over, they're taking over, they're taking over. But are they? That is how propaganda works. That is what it's meant to do. It's not going to give you the facts and the context of the facts. It's just going to give you a snippet, and it'll be called fact. And the thing is that you've been taught that fact is truth. But fact is not necessarily objective or subjective truth. It's just a part of the story. It doesn't tell the complete truth or contextual truth of the story. That is how propaganda works. If you're continuously told from when you're born that you, as a Christian or as a, Muslim, you are superior to other people. And this is an example. No hate, no condescension. It's an example. You're superior to other people that are not part of your religion. You grow up with that perception that your central idea is true. And other people who do not share that central idea that you are supreme in your religion will be less than you. You might come to a point where you hate people that do not share that central idea. Now, is it because of a fear that you may be wrong? Is it because of a shame? Is it because of a guilt? Is it because of a resentment for the religion? Could it be because you just feel very good being top while other people are underneath you? These are questions you need to ask when it comes to the messages, the media, the information you take in on a daily basis. I'll wrap it up with this. What you take in, you will regurgitate. You must make sure that when you listen to news stories and media, everything, of course, tries to sell their side. Your job is to make sure that you are listening to every side that is important in that story so that you can make an informed decision, informed opinions, and always question your bias because we all have it. Are you biased towards this thing? Are you biased towards this other one? Is your core belief stopping you from understanding other people because you have been told you need to hate what you hate? Because that is what your core belief hates. You can work through hate. You can unlearn hate by working with yourself. You can unlearn you can unlearn falling for propaganda so easily by questioning the things that are the perceptions that are passed on to you, that are put onto you, the information that's been being put onto you. Question it. It's not easy. It's not easy being able to question what you've always believed and the fact that you've been told that media is true and it's factual and it's unbiased. As far as human beings are involved in anything, it will have a degree, a percentage of bias. I do, you do. It'll have a degree, a percentage of prejudice. Because so far, under the systems we live under, we've been sold and taught how to be prejudiced and biased towards ourselves. And so we reflect that onto others as well. Do not let your core belief continue being fed by biased perception, which you now regurgitate onto others through mediums of propaganda. It doesn't only come through news, through books, through conversations. So you must always, always have a conversation with yourself. Have a sounding board with other people, not just people in your echo chamber, people that think differently from you, so that you stop hating. You can disagree. You can, but you can still have conversations. You don't need to hate. You don't need to fear, because that is what pushes us to the point where we have a world where it is okay to massacre people because you hate them, because you don't understand them, because they're far away from you. They're not within your circle. They are. Because if we're going by this core belief system, the core, the individual, the family, the standard relationships, and the community at large, everyone is part of this. Everyone. The quicker we awaken to this, the quicker we understand that the next person being hurt hurts us, the quicker we are able to create a society for the next generation to be better than us. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, of course, because these conversations are not supposed to be happening with myself. They're happening with you. So subscribe, share, drop your comments, like, anything. Let me know what you think, okay? Thanks for watching, and hopefully in the next 2 weeks, I'll drop another video and we can have another conversation. But if you can't wait 2 weeks, you can, of course, follow me on my socials, on other apps, and of course we can interact there as many times as we want. Okay, have a great day. Cheers, and I'll see you soon.